14 people. We pulled out 14, and they all said there was a little girl, blonde hair, pink jacket, about 6, maybe 7, but she wasn't on the manifest. And we searched. God, we searched every inch of that mountain. No trace. And then, 6 years later, I get this call. A woman's voice. Soft. "You saved my daughter," she said. "She remembers you." I didn't know what to say. Still don't. Some things just don't let go. My name's Jessica Colton. Folks mostly just call me Jess. I was born and raised in Dubois, Wyoming. Little mountain town. Not much to it, really. Couple hundred people, same faces year after year. You don't grow up out here without learning to listen more than you talk. Weather teaches you that. The wind, the snow, the silence. They all got a voice if you pay attention. I spent most of my life in the woods, not wandering, not camping, not for fun. I was a forest ranger. 32 years with the U.S. Forest Service. Most of it in the Wind River Range. Hard country, remote, wild. It don't give a damn who you are, and that's part of why I loved it. I'm 57 now. Retired early. Didn't really want to, but my knees and back started saying otherwise. And truth be told, some parts of the job never really left me. So I live just outside of town now, couple miles off the main road, in a cabin I built myself back in '98. No TV. Got a radio and a landline. That's enough noise for me. I live quiet. Grow my own greens. Keep chickens. Sometimes a neighbor will stop by to drop off eggs or borrow a chainsaw. I don't go into town much. Don't need to. Most folks there remember me as that ranger woman, which I'm fine with. I never liked attention. Always felt better watching trees sway than sitting under a spotlight. But every now and then, when the wind's just right, or a storm rolls through, or I hear the chop of a helicopter overhead, I go right back to that ridge, that wreckage, right back to 2003. I wasn't married, still ain't. Never had kids. Came close once, but, well, this life don't always make room for others. Especially not when you're out there every week, patrolling miles of trail, looking for signs of fire, illegal camps, lost hikers. I was good at it. Proud of what I did. It wasn't glamorous. Most days were just trees and silence. But that silence, that was my church. We weren't like the hotshots or the rescue teams you see on the news. Most of our work was quiet, steady, preventing trouble before it started. Walking the line between protection and letting nature do what it does. But there were moments, few and far between, thank God. Moments that punched through that quiet life and carved themselves deep. And that crash, that was the loudest moment of all. It was the summer of 2003, July. I remember because it had been a dry month, and we were all on edge about fire risk. Lightning storms were common that time of year. Fast-moving, wind like knives. 1 minute it's clear, next you're in the middle of hell with visibility down to 10 feet. I was stationed at a lookout about 6,000 feet up, near Green River Lakes. Remote spot. No road access. We had to fly in supplies once a month. I loved it up there. Long days, long nights, nothing but trees and sky. I'd check the trails, monitor water levels, track weather patterns, report any trouble. That morning started like any other. Coffee, log entries, a check-in with the station over radio, a few notes on a thunderhead building to the south. No reason to expect anything unusual. But by evening, everything had changed. I'll get to that in time. What I want to say first is, being a ranger, especially in a place like Wind River, teaches you something most folks never have to learn. It teaches you how small you really are, how quickly things can go from peaceful to deadly, and how sometimes you don't get answers. Sometimes you just get silence. I've carried that silence with me for over 20 years now, and I still don't know what to make of that phone call. Sometimes I think I imagined it. Maybe my mind made it up to fill in the gaps. Other times I'm sure it was real. Her voice. The way she said, "You saved my daughter." Like it was just a simple fact. Like I should have remembered. But I didn't remember her. I didn't remember any child. And that's the part that keeps me up some nights. I never told anyone about that call. Not my supervisor back then, not the other rangers, not even my sister. It felt private. Like if I said it out loud, it'd vanish. That's why I'm telling it now. Not for sympathy, not for attention, but because it's time. Because maybe someone out there knows something I don't. Maybe that woman's still out there. Or maybe that little girl is. Back in 2003, I was already 20 years into the job. I knew those woods like the back of my hand. Every ridge, every creek, every damn tree that leaned a little funny. I was posted at a fire lookout near Green River Lakes. Beautiful spot. Lonely, too. And I liked it that way. I'd get up with the sun most days, heat some water over the stove, pour myself a cup of black coffee, no cream, no sugar, just how I liked it. Sit on the porch and listen. First light always brought sounds, elk way off in the brush, maybe a coyote yapping down below, birds just starting to move. Then I'd do my rounds. I kept a logbook, weather, wind, fire risk, trail activity. Sometimes I'd hike out, check markers, make sure nobody left trash behind. You'd be surprised how many folks think it's fine to leave beer cans halfway up a mountain. Most days were quiet, long. That kind of quiet people from the city can't handle. They think it's peaceful for the first hour or two, then start getting itchy. But me? I thrived in it. That quiet let me think, let me breathe. I didn't carry a smartphone or any of that junk. We had radios, a sat phone for emergencies. That was it. My day was sunup to sundown, and when it got dark, I'd light a lamp and read old paperbacks or whittle, sometimes write letters I never sent. Meals were simple. Canned beans, jerky, rice. Every few weeks we'd get a resupply chopper. If we were lucky, they'd toss in fresh fruit or eggs. Mostly, it was dry goods and what I could pack in when I hitched a ride back to town. I remember that summer being especially dry. The kind of dry where your lips crack even in the shade. We kept talking about fire watch. The way the pines were brittle, the underbrush crisp. All it'd take was one lightning strike in the wrong place. That's what we were worried about. We weren't expecting no plane to come falling out of the sky. But I'll get to that. Back then, part of my job was patrolling backcountry trails. That meant long hikes, sometimes alone, sometimes paired with another ranger. You walk for hours, checking trail markers, signs of wildlife, and making sure no one's getting into trouble. People think the danger in that job's wild animals are getting lost. But truth is, it's complacency. You get used to the rhythm. Start thinking you've seen it all. That's when it bites you. There was one old logging road I had to check weekly. Hardly used anymore, but we kept it cleared for emergency vehicles. I'd take the ATV part way up, then hike the rest. That climb always left me breathing heavy, but I never minded. Gave me a reason to feel my heartbeat. I kept a journal back then. Not for anyone else, just my own way of getting things down. I jot down things I saw. A deer carcass picked clean. A new sapling pushing up through dead soil. Once wrote a whole page about a hawk I watched circle for almost 10 minutes straight. I didn't realize at the time how important those little observations were. How they'd stick with me long after the big things faded. My partner at the time was a guy named Earl. Retired Army. Big guy. Quiet. We didn't talk much unless we had to, but I trusted him. He had a way of listening to the forest, like I did. We'd meet up once a week, compare notes, sometimes sit around the fire if we were both in camp. But most of the time, It was just me. Me in the woods. The forest don't care who you are. It don't praise you, and it sure as hell don't pity you. But if you respect it, it gives back. Teaches you to watch, to wait, to feel the weight of time in your bones. That was my rhythm. Mornings in the field, afternoons in the tower, evenings with my back against the cabin wall, staring at the sky, wondering if I'd ever feel like I belonged anywhere else. And honestly, I didn't want to. I remember thinking, around that time, that I could do this job till the day I died. Let the mountains bury me when they were ready. But life had other plans. It's funny how a routine can feel like armor. You get so used to the pattern, the radio checks, the weather logs, the hike to the same overlook, you start thinking nothing can shake it. Then one damn sound changes everything. A voice on the radio, a static-filled message you can barely make out. And suddenly your heart's pounding, your gut's tight, and the trees don't feel so steady anymore. But back in the early part of that summer, all I knew was calm. I didn't know what was coming. Didn't know the shape it would take. Didn't know it'd stay with me for the rest of my damn life. July 14th, 2003. I remember the exact date, 'cause I wrote it in my logbook, same as always. Top of the page, underlined. That morning was warm already. Too warm for that early. I'd stepped out on the porch with my coffee, and I could feel it. That kind of stillness where the air feels thick. Not quiet, just loaded. Like the woods were holding their breath. I checked the sky, clear up north, but there was a wall of dark clouds building out toward the southwest. Big ones, the kind that roll in faster than you expect. I made a note in the weather log, marked the wind direction, figured I'd keep an eye on it. Standard stuff. I'd just finished sweeping the lookout floor when the first crack of thunder rolled in. Low and far, but you could feel it vibrate through the walls. I clicked the radio on, did my afternoon check-in with base, told them about the system coming in. They said they'd heard from a few outfitters down near Pinedale. Storm moving fast. I remember thinking it might knock out our signal. That happened a lot. Wasn't even half an hour later I got the call. It wasn't panic at first. Just this clipped voice over the radio saying they'd picked up a mayday. Something about a small aircraft. Lost contact somewhere between Jackson Hole and Rawlins. Maybe engine trouble. Maybe caught in the storm. They weren't sure. And then the words. Possible downed plane in Wind River Range. I remember I just stood there. You hear that, and your whole body locks up. You think, no way. Not out here. Not this terrain. I asked for coordinates. The guy read them twice. My heart was beating hard, but I stayed steady. I always stayed steady when the call came. Even if my hands were shaken, my voice wouldn't show it. I grabbed my gear. First aid, GPS, flare kit, emergency blankets, thermal wraps. Stuff you never want to need but always pack. There weren't no roads where that plane might have gone down. Closest trail was a full-day hike. No way we were getting there fast enough on foot. I radioed back and requested air support. Took 'em about 45 minutes to reach my location. That chopper? God, I can still hear the blades. Dust everywhere, trees swaying. I jumped in with 2 rescue techs. Young guys. Nervous energy. I could tell they'd never done a crash site before. I didn't say much. Just nodded and strapped in. As we lifted off, I looked down at the trees stretching out like a green ocean. And all I could think was, please let it be a false alarm. Please let it be a rough landing and everybody walking away. It wasn't. Pilot spotted smoke before we did. Black and thick, coming from a ridge just east of Gannett Creek. It was wedged and bad. The plane, what was left of it, had gone down hard. Wing torn off, fuselage cracked, nose buried into the slope like it tried to dig its way out. We hovered for maybe a minute, taking it in. There were people moving. Survivors. Some standing, some crawling. I counted heads without realizing it. That's the kind of thing you train for. You just start looking for movement. We couldn't land right at the site, too narrow. The pilot found a flat spot about 100 yards off, just barely enough space. We jumped out and made for the wreckage on foot. The air smelled like burnt oil, rubber, and blood. That's a smell you never forget. 14 people. 14 human beings crawling out of hell. Some were screaming. Some were just staring into nothing. One woman had a piece of metal stuck through her thigh. Another man's face was so burnt I could hardly see his eyes. I did what I had to do. Moved fast, checked vitals, shouted instructions. Stay with me. Don't move her yet. Get the gauze, now. I remember this one guy, middle-aged, maybe late 40s. He kept asking, "Did you get her? Did you get the girl?" Over and over. I thought he was talking about his wife or daughter. I told him help was coming. Then another woman, young, blood running down her face, grabbed my vest and said, "There was a little girl. She was sitting in front of me. She's gone. You have to find her." That's when it hit me. They weren't talking about a grown woman. They meant a child. A child. I stopped cold for a second, looked around, through the smoke, the bodies, the wreckage. No child. We got the wounded out first, prioritized the worst injuries. It took 4 more flights to extract everyone. I stayed. Wouldn't leave. Told him I wasn't moving till we searched every inch. By then, more Rangers and SAR were coming in by foot. We did grid searches, flashlights, dogs, the whole bit. I shouted till my voice went raw. "Hello? If you can hear me, call out." Nothing. We searched till the sun went down. No little girl. Not a shoe. Not a coat. Not a footprint. She wasn't there. We hit the ground maybe 100 yards from the wreckage, like I said. Trees were thick in that spot. Pine mostly. Tight and dark. We had to push through brush. Step over deadfall. I remember slipping once on a wet patch of moss and catching myself on a log. My palms stung from it. Didn't matter. We could smell it before we saw it. That burning metal smell. It's not like a campfire. It's sharper, oily. It gets in your clothes, your throat, and mixed with it, blood, gasoline, smoke. Not heavy smoke like a wildfire. This was smoldering, like something had already burned as much as it was gonna. And then we saw it. The nose of the plane was buried in a slope of loose rock and mud. One wing had torn off completely, maybe 100 feet back. Tail section bent sideways like someone twisted it by hand. The back hatch was open, maybe blown open, I don't know. But there were people. They were everywhere. Some still inside, reaching out. Some sitting in the dirt, holding their heads or bleeding into their shirts. One guy was curled up next to a tree, his leg bent the wrong damn way. Another woman was walking in circles, barefoot, covered in soot, muttering something over and over. Couldn't understand her. I didn't think. You don't. In those moments. You just go. We split up. One of the young techs went to the far side. I stayed near the main wreckage. I crawled in through a side gap where the fuselage had torn open. It was dark inside. No lights. I had my headlamp on, and the beam cut through the dust hanging in the air. Everything was still shaken. Not the ground. Me. I found a man still strapped in. He was groaning, eyes half shut, blood running down his temple. I undid the belt and eased him back. Checked his pulse. Weak, but steady. I called out, "Anyone else in here?" No answer. I moved seat to seat. Some were empty. Some were soaked in blood. I stepped over one woman who... She didn't make it. Eyes wide open. Hand still gripping the armrest. I whispered, "I'm sorry," and kept moving. Outside, I could hear the tech yelling, "We got a live one," and the sound of the chopper circling again overhead. We started getting them out, one by one. Carried who we could. Guided the ones who could walk. Every single person we pulled out looked shocked, like their minds hadn't caught up with what happened yet. One of the men, real thin guy with a broken wrist, kept asking me, "Is the girl okay? Is she out?" I said, "What girl?" And he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "The little girl in the pink coat. She was in the second row, right by the window." I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "There's no one here like that." He shook his head. No, she was there. I saw her. Right before we went down, she was crying. I told her to keep her head down. I thought maybe he was confused. Head injury, trauma. People imagine things when they're scared. But then another passenger, an older woman, grabbed my arm as we wrapped her leg. She said, "Please tell me the little one is okay. Blonde hair. You must have found her by now." That's when my stomach dropped. We kept looking, every inch of that site. Under seats, behind brush, down the slope where pieces had scattered. I remember falling to my knees, digging with my bare hands in a patch of loose gravel, thinking maybe, she'd been thrown from the cabin and landed soft. But there was nothing. 14 people. That's who we pulled out alive. 2 dead in the wreckage. Everyone accounted for. Everyone but her. The reports came in clean. Pilot's manifest had 14 passengers. No child listed. No ticket, no ID, no extra seat. We checked luggage, no kids' clothes, no toys, no booster seat. But still, they said she was there. At least 6 survivors mentioned her. Some said they saw her before takeoff. Some said she was asleep on her mother's lap. One woman swore she handed the girl a coloring book mid-flight. And yet, no one could name her. No one knew who she was with. I remember standing at the edge of that site as the last chopper lifted off with the final patient. Just me and a couple of the local deputies, watching the light fade through the trees. I had blood on my pants. My fingers were raw. My back ached like hell. But I didn't want to leave. Something felt unfinished. I walked the perimeter again. One last time. Just in case. I found a shoe. Small. Pink. Tucked under a bush. I picked it up. I still have it. They told me later it probably belonged to one of the adult women. Women wear pink shoes, they said. Especially hikers. Could be. Sure. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like she'd been there. And somehow, just slipped through our hands. It was after we'd gotten the last evac out that the questions really started. I was sitting on a rock just off the crash site, drinking water out of my canteen with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Blood under my nails. Smoke still hanging in the air. My radio crackling off and on. I hadn't said much. Didn't feel like speaking. My head was thumping and my boots were soaked in God knows what. And that's when Deputy Harlan came up to me. He had this notepad in his hand, trying to make sense of witness statements. He looked pale. We'd worked together a few times before, mostly on backcountry incidents, lost hikers, injured campers. But this was different. He said, "Jess, how many did you count?" I told him. 14 pulled out alive, 2 DOA. Manifest says that's all of them. And he looked at me real slow, rubbed his jaw like he was trying to buy himself a second to think. Then he said, 3 separate survivors said there was a kid on board. A little girl. Blonde hair. Maybe 6, 7 years old. Nobody seems to know who she was with. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just stared down at my boots. Thought maybe I misheard him. He went on. One lady says she saw the girl near the front. Another says she sat across the aisle from her. Guy in the back says she screamed when the plane went down. All swear she was real. I asked if he had names. He said yeah. He was writing them down, gonna follow up. Said it might be trauma, hallucination, shared memory. but none of them seemed confused about it. Not one. I stood up and walked back to the wreckage. Didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe a clue we missed. Something we overlooked in the rush. But the whole place had already gone cold. No smoke left. No noise. Just pieces of what used to be a life in the air. I crawled into what was left of the cabin again. Picked through bags, coats, pieces of seat cushions. I was looking for something. Anything. A doll. A child's jacket. A name tag. Nothing. I found a plastic comb in a seat pocket. Pink. Thought maybe it was hers. Held it in my hand like it meant something. Then saw a lipstick tube in the same spot. Probably belonged to the same woman. Grown woman. I went quiet after that. Didn't speak much on the flight back to base. Didn't speak much for days, if I'm honest. It sat with me. Heavy. Like a brick in the gut. I kept replaying it. Those people, sitting in the dirt, eyes wide, bodies broken, and still asking, "Did you get the little girl?" Not one. Not two. At least 5 of them asked me the same thing, different words. "Where's the girl? Did she make it? She was right in front of me. Where'd she go?" And every time I said the same thing, "We didn't find a girl." Their faces twisted when I said it. Some cried, some just stared off. One woman, I'll never forget this, started screaming, real high-pitched, panicked, said, "She was right there, she was right there." Took 2 medics to calm her down. I couldn't even move. I just stood there, watching her break. That night, back at the ranger station, I sat on the cot with the lights off. Just the radio humming in the corner. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop seeing her face. Only I didn't know what she looked like. I tried to build her in my head. Blonde hair, they said. Pink jacket, 6 or 7. I imagined freckles. Maybe a little stuffed animal in her lap. Maybe scared to fly. Maybe her mom held her hand when the plane shook. Then I'd snap out of it and remind myself, there was no girl. That's what the report said. No child on the manifest. No family missing a kid. No airline records. No seat assigned to a minor. And yet, too many people saw her. Too many felt her. That kind of memory, it don't come from nowhere. After a few days, the investigators wrapped up the site. FAA came through. NTSB took over. I gave my statement, same as always. Told them everything I saw, everything I didn't. They asked if I saw any child. I said no, but I told them what the passengers said. They wrote it down, nodded, then moved on. I wanted to scream. She was real to them, but I didn't. I kept that part inside. People in town heard about the crash. It made the papers for a few weeks. Miraculous rescue in Wind River. Ranger Jess Colton leads mountain extraction. All that nonsense. Nobody printed a word about the girl. I never brought it up. Not with my team. Not even with Earl. What was I supposed to say? I failed someone who might not exist? That kind of thing makes folks look at you funny. So I buried it. Kept going with the job. Kept writing in my logbook. Kept patrolling the same trails. But some nights, when the wind hit the windows just right, I'd hear her voice. A soft one. Or maybe a scream. I don't know. Could be my brain playing tricks. Could be something else. Then 6 years passed, and the phone rang. People always think the hard part's the day it happens. It's not. The hard part comes later. When the noise fades. When the smell finally leaves your clothes. When the radios go quiet and there's no more check-ins. No more triage. No more nothing. Just you. And what you remember. For a long time after the crash, I stayed busy. That's what I do when I don't know what else to do. Work. I'd wake up before the sun, same as always. Check the sky, check the wind, log my notes, hike, patrol, radio in, everything by the book. But it wasn't the same. My boots felt heavier, my steps slower. My eyes kept going back over my shoulder like I'd missed something. I'd checked the same ridgeline 3 times just to be sure. Couldn't shake the feeling there was still someone out there I hadn't found. I stopped sleeping regular. Used to be I'd be out cold by 9 and up with the birds. But after the crash, I started waking up at weird hours. 2 a.m., 3:17 on the dot sometimes, just lying there, staring at the ceiling. And that damn shoe, I kept it. I know I shouldn't have. I should have turned it in, logged it as found evidence or something. But I didn't. I slipped it into my pack that night and brought it back to the cabin. Set it on the shelf above the stove. Never cleaned it. Never moved it. I still see it every morning when I make coffee. I guess that's part of the punishment I gave myself. A reminder. Because no matter what the report said, no matter how many times they told me there were no children on that plane, my gut wouldn't let it go. You spend enough time in the woods, you learn to trust your gut. It ain't always right, but it don't lie either. The part that ate at me the most was how sure they all were. The survivors. They knew she was there. You don't all dream up the same person in the middle of chaos. Doesn't work like that. I started second-guessing everything. Did I miss a footprint? Did I move too fast? Did we search far enough down the slope? I asked for the search radius report from the NTSB. I wanted to know if there were blind spots. They said the sweep was thorough, that dogs were used, infrared, all that high-tech gear. Still, no child, no body, no coat, no ID, no name, and no answers. I started digging on my own time, reached out to the hospital where the passengers were taken, asked if anyone came forward later, saying they were missing a child. No one. Not one. Even called the airline's regional office in Colorado. Asked them to double-check the manifest, the boarding records. They gave me the same line. 14 passengers, all accounted for. So I let it go. Or I tried to. That's the thing no one tells you about this line of work. You think it's about saving people. And it is, sometimes. But it's also about carrying the weight of the ones you didn't save, or the ones you couldn't even prove were there. I didn't talk about her again. Not to my supervisor. Not to the other rangers. Hell, not even to myself. It became this quiet thing inside me, like a splinter you can't quite dig out. Years passed. We had other calls, lost hikers, a fire season that nearly took out half the valley, even a cougar incident. But nothing ever stuck in me the way that girl did. By 2009, I was starting to think about retiring. My knees were acting up. Couldn't hike the way I used to. I'd started training some of the younger rangers, handing off more duties, trying to ease myself out without making it too obvious. Then one day, the landline rang. Now most folks don't even know my number. I keep it private. Cell towers don't reach out here anyway, so the only calls I get are from the district office or maybe my sister once a month. But that day, middle of the afternoon, cloudy sky, I remember it all. I picked up, and this woman's voice came through. She didn't say her name. Didn't say where she was calling from. Just, "Ms. Colton?" I said. "Yes, ma'am. Who's this?" She paused, just a beat. Then she said, "You were there, in the Wind River crash, in 2003. I sat down. My heart started pounding. "I was," I said, "careful." And she said, real soft, almost whispering, "You saved my daughter. She still remembers your face." I couldn't speak. I waited for her to say more, but she didn't. I said, "Ma'am, I don't understand. I don't..." But she cut me off. "She was so scared," she said. "She said a woman in a green uniform carried her out. Said you held her hand. Thank you." Then the line went dead. I tried star 69. Nothing. No record. Could have been a payphone or a scrambled number, I don't know. I sat there with the phone in my lap for damn near an hour. Couldn't cry. Couldn't speak. Just sat. I thought maybe it was a prank, but it didn't feel like one. That voice, it was too real, too quiet, too heavy. And the thing is, I don't remember carrying a child, not even once. So either my memory failed me, or something happened that day I still don't understand. It had been 6 years. 6 damn years. By then, I'd almost convinced myself I'd made it up. The girl. The voices asking about her. The pink shoe. The way my gut twisted every time I saw a child's jacket hanging in a thrift store. I told myself it was grief. Collective stress. Survivors see strange things in the middle of trauma. Memories get warped. I'd repeated that line so many times it started sounding true. Then the phone rang. It was late spring. May, I think. Snow had just finished melting off the higher ridges. I was outside, patching the fence where one of my hens kept squeezing through. I heard the landline ringing inside. I remember the way it echoed through the cabin. Slow, steady, like a knock at the door you weren't expecting. I didn't run, just wiped the dirt off my hands, stepped inside, picked it up. "Colton," I said. There was a pause, then a woman's voice. Quiet, breathing a little heavy, like she'd just walked fast or was nervous. She said, "Is this Jessica Colton?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. Who's calling?" Another pause. No background noise. Just her breath and that tiny crackle you get on older phone lines. She said, "You don't know me, but I know you." I didn't say anything. She kept going, slow and careful. "You were there, in the Wind River Range, the plane crash, 2003. My heart just stopped. Everything went still. I didn't even blink, just held the phone to my ear like it was glued there. I said yes, I was. And then she said the words that changed everything. "You saved my daughter. She remembers your face. She remembers your voice." I felt my knees go weak, had to sit on the edge of the kitchen chair real slow, like I was 90 years old all of a sudden. I whispered, "Ma'am, I don't," but I couldn't finish the sentence. She said, "She doesn't remember much else. She was scared, said it was dark, but she remembers a woman, a ranger, you. Said you held her hand. Said you told her she'd be all right." I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry as dust. I said, "What's her name?" Another pause. She didn't answer. I said, "Ma'am, please, I need to know. Who is she? Was she on that plane? I don't remember." And that's when she said, "Thank you." Just those 2 words. Soft, heavy. Then the line went dead. I sat there for a full minute, just staring at the wall. Didn't even realize I was crying till I felt it hit my shirt. I tried calling back. *69, checked the call log. Nothing. Just blank. No number. No trace. I don't even know if it was real to this day. Could have been a prank, a cruel one, or maybe someone trying to mess with my head. But the voice, it wasn't joking. It was sad, grateful, scared, like someone who'd been carrying a secret for a long, long time. And what got me, what still gets me, is that I don't remember a child. I remember 14 adults, broken bones, blood, screaming, people dragging themselves out of the wreck, but not one child in my arms, not one tiny hand in mine. Could I have missed it? Could I have pulled her out and forgot? Maybe I was moving too fast. Maybe my mind blocked it out. Maybe she was unconscious and I never saw her face. But it doesn't sit right. I went back through my journals after that. I still have them all, stacked up on the shelf next to the wood stove. One for every season I worked that range. I flipped to the pages from July 2003, found the entry from the day of the crash. Just a few lines written fast. Plane down. Smoke visible. 14 evac'd. 2 deceased. Survivors in shock. Multiple reports of a missing child. Female, 67YO. No child found. That was it. I stared at those words for hours. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept going over every face I saw that day. Every voice, every scream. And then I started hearing hers again. Not in words, just a feeling. A presence. I don't know how else to put it. It wasn't spooky or dramatic like a movie. It was just a memory that didn't belong. A weight in my chest that hadn't been there before. And I kept thinking, why now? Why 6 years later? Why call me, thank me, then vanish? She didn't ask for nothing, didn't offer a name, didn't ask if I remembered. She told me what happened, like she needed to let it out, like I was the only one who'd understand. I didn't tell anyone about the call, not for years. What would I say? That girl I never found? She's alive. Maybe. People'd think I lost it. Hell, some days I think maybe I did. But I still got that pink shoe. Still sits right there on the shelf above my stove. And some mornings, I stand in front of it and whisper, "You made it. I hope you're okay." I don't know if she ever hears me, but I say it anyway. There ain't a week that goes by I don't think about her. Not every day, not always right at the surface, but it comes up, quietly, like a creek under ice, still moving, even if you can't see it. I'll be out in the yard, splitting wood, or sitting on the porch with my coffee, listening to the wind in the trees. And just like that, she's back. Not her face. I never saw it. But the idea of her, the weight of her, the not knowing, that's what sticks with me more than anything. Not what happened, not even what didn't happen. Just not knowing the truth, not having the answer. You can prepare for a lot in life. You can learn how to fight fires, tie a tourniquet, carry a man twice your size out of a ravine. But you can't train for silence. You can't train for living with a question that won't quit. And I've tried. Lord knows I've tried to box it up, put it on a shelf in my mind and forget it. But I can't. People ask me sometimes if I ever saw ghosts out there. Spending all those years alone in the woods. You hear things. Wind moving funny, branches creaking just so. I always told 'em no. Not real ones anyway. But now I wonder. Maybe ghosts ain't spirits floating around in white sheets. Maybe they're just moments that never finished. Things left open. Questions we couldn't answer. That's what she is to me. A ghost I carry. Not in a spooky way. Not in fear. But in ache. I used to believe in order. That there was a logic to things. A chain. A reason. You work hard, do your job, follow the signs, and you'll be all right. That crash broke something in that belief. I saw 14 people pulled out of that wreck. 14 who shouldn't have made it. And I was proud. Damn proud. I gave everything I had that day. But somehow, it still wasn't enough. Because if she was real, and deep down, I believe she was, then I left someone behind. And if she wasn't, then why do I feel like I failed her? That question's been living inside me for over 2 decades now. Quiet, steady, not loud like it used to be, but heavier. And the thing is, I don't even know what I'd do if I had the answer. If that woman called again. If she told me her name, sent me a picture, explained what really happened. Would that help? Or would it just open a new wound? I think maybe there's a part of me that don't want to know. Because the mystery has become a kind of companion. A reminder. That even when we do everything right, life doesn't always give us closure. Sometimes, it gives us silence. And we gotta learn how to live in it. I never married, never had kids. Some people assume I regret that. I don't. I had a good life. A strong life. One with purpose. But sometimes I wonder, if I had a daughter of my own, Would I be telling this story different? Would I be able to let it go easier? Or would it haunt me more? I don't know. I've thought about writing the woman a letter, even if I don't know where to send it. Just putting the words down, getting them out of me. I guess this here, what I'm saying now. Maybe this is the letter. If you're listening, wherever you are, I want you to know I didn't forget. I didn't forget her. I didn't forget you. I don't know what happened on that mountain. Not really. I only know what I saw and what I didn't. But if she was there, and if I helped her, even just for a second, then that means something. It has to. Because if it don't, if none of this has weight, then I don't know what I spent my whole life doing. And I can't accept that. I won't. So yeah, I still think about her. The girl I maybe saved, or maybe imagined. But either way, she lives in me. And maybe that's the kind of rescue no one writes down. I know this story don't have a clean end. I know some of y'all sitting there, watching this, maybe hoping I'd say she turned up, that she came knocking on my door one day with a smile and a picture and a memory, or that the truth came out somehow, black and white, easy to understand. But life ain't built like that. Not out here, not in the real world. I ain't telling this story to scare nobody, or to make myself out to be something I'm not. Truth is, I'm just a woman who did her job the best she could, with the tools she had, in the place she knew best. And sometimes, that still ain't enough. Sometimes you walk away from something and it keeps following you, quiet-like. Years go by, and it don't get louder. It just gets heavier, like carrying water in your chest. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you've ever lost something you can't explain, if you've ever felt the weight of a question that don't go away, I see you. I get it. Not everything in this life gets tied up neat. Some of us live with open chapters, loose ends, things left unsaid. That don't make us broken. That makes us human. I still don't know what really happened up there in those trees. I don't know if that little girl was real, or if she was some shared memory between a bunch of folks scared out of their minds. I don't know why she wasn't on the manifest, or why nobody ever came forward back then, or why, years later, that woman picked up the phone and called me, just to say thank you. But I do know what I felt. I know what I carry. And I know what I didn't find that day. And if by some chance, you are that woman, the one who called me, or the girl, now grown, and you're watching this, I'm still here. You don't owe me nothing. You don't even have to say a word. But if you ever wanted to, I'd listen. I'd sit with you on this porch, pour you a cup of coffee, and just listen. No questions. No need to explain what can't be explained. Just two people sharing a silence that's lived too long. And for the rest of y'all, folks who've been carrying your own stories, your own memories you can't shake, I hope this made you feel a little less alone. I hope it reminded you that we all got our ghosts, that not every rescue ends with a ribbon and a medal. Sometimes the ones we save are the ones we never see again, and sometimes the ones we lose are the ones we carry with us the longest. So if you've got a story like mine, something unfinished or unspeakable, don't keep it locked up. Tell it. Even if no one believes you. Even if you don't know the end. Tell it anyway. Sometimes speaking it out loud is the only kind of peace we ever get, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there's been waiting to hear it.